Hey, did you know that everyone's gay for Bridget? Yeah, that's a really old meme. If you're a zoomer, you're not going to know the deep lore. In 2002, the fighting game Guilty Gear XX came out, adding to the roster what is undoubtedly the series' most famous character, Bridget. The TLDR of the story is, Bridget was born in a village with a superstition that frowned upon same-sex twins. So in order to avoid getting cursed, Bridget was raised as a girl by his parents. When he became old enough, he ran away, became a bounty hunter, and desired to return home one day after becoming successful, to prove to his parents that the superstition was false. But as a result of his upbringing, he looks, acts, and sounds quite feminine. Bridget is the origin of the term trap. Yeah, from 20 years ago. The whole point of the character is that everybody thinks he's a girl, but he's not. And this was generally played for laughs in Guilty Gear, with straight men becoming embarrassed for their attraction to him. The 2000s saw a lot of Bridget fan porn, both men and women cosplaying as him. The Everybody's Gay for Bridget meme highlighting his ability to attract and confuse straight men, as well as the dropped a Bridget on him saying, which refers to a shocking gender reveal scene in a piece of media. The name dropped a Bridget on him is a cross between, well, Bridget, and the saying dropped a bridge on him, which is a trope where a character is written out of a story and given an unceremonious quick death to get it over with, often because the actor left the show. Despite this, the phrase dropped a bridge on him comes from Captain Kirk's death in Star Trek Generations, which wasn't unceremonious or quick, but was still a little bit odd. Nobody expected him to die like a redshirt. In any case, Bridget is a trap. You're gay for liking Bridget. This stuff permeated 2000s era internet culture, and it was one of the first real instances of acceptance of the idea of what we would now call gender nonconformity, at least among males. We had tomboys before, yeah, but nothing for men. It might be teasing and kinda rude, but that was the nature of acceptance back in the day. Everybody takes their lumps to become a part of the crowd, and Bridget was a fan favorite, specifically because of how the character played with gender. In an interview in Anime Expo in 2009, the creator of Bridget, Daisuke Ishiwatari, was asked if he anticipated Bridget's popularity. This was his reply through a translator. There were already other good-looking and tough characters, so I added a cute character. However, a lot of fighting games already had the token cute character, so I wanted something unconventional. So I made a cute character that's a guy. The big surprise was that it didn't matter. Bridget still has a huge following. There's nothing here about representation or whatever, it was just done on a whim, because it was interesting and new. I can respect that, make whatever you want to make. But the recent shit show about Bridget is that he was added into the latest game, Guilty Gear Strive, as a DLC character. And there are a lot of very loud, vocal individuals online right now, insisting that Bridget is not a trap, or a femboy, or any other sort of feminine man, but is in fact a trans woman. And they use these clips from the English version of the game to say so.
Well, ready to give up yet?
That's all for today. You're a tough cookie. You see any other UMAs, you let me know, little lady.
I'm a boy.
That right? Sorry about that, horse. No wonder you're so famous. Looks are deceiving. I'll be back for more later, little lady.
I'm a boy. These girl clothes are... it's a long story.
I see.
Thank you. Both of you.
Don't mention it. Happy trails, cowgirl, or, cowboy.
Cowgirl is fine, because I'm a girl.
Fair enough. That sounds a lot like Bridget is dejected when he says I'm a boy, and is very happy, like a weight is off his shoulders, when he says girl is fine because I'm a girl. This is being treated as Bridget's coming out moment. Bridget is trans, guys. If you spread any of those old memes around, you're a transphobic bigot. We're gonna lock down the Guilty Gear wiki and prevent anybody from talking about it, because Bridget is trans and the person who's an admin on the site is also trans. Also, if you have any complaints about any of this, you're a nerdy man baby who is worrying too much about fictional characters, and the world is changing and leaving you behind. Well, yeah, it actually doesn't matter if people make Bridget trans or not. It is just a game. Just like the pride flag in Spider-Man is also just a game. But when somebody draws Black Panther as a white man, or posts an old image of Bridget being a trap, these people scream bloody fucking murder. So clearly they think it matters, and they're hoping you will take the bait of it doesn't matter, so that they can do what they like without any pushback. But more importantly, let's examine the actual situation here. People are saying that the Bridget comes out as a girl scene is from a bad ending, and therefore we should laugh at the people who consider this to be canon. That's actually not true. In Guilty Gear, the endings in arcade mode are all canon. They each reveal a different part of the story, but none of them actually overwrite each other. For example, Bridget's 3 endings in Guilty Gear XX each tell a different story, where Bridget brings a reward back to the village, where Bridget befriends the jellyfish pirates, and where Bridget is hit on by Johnny. But in the next game, it's canon that all 3 of these endings happened, and none of them actually prevent the others from being true in some kind of consistency problem. This is how the games are written. Each ending provides a different story point, and to get the full story, you watch all of the endings. And some people are using the clips where Bridget says, I'm a boy, to counteract the clips where Bridget says, I'm a girl. And at that point, it's just cherry picking what you want to hear. But nonetheless, I still don't think that Bridget is trans or a woman. I do think that Bridget is still the same femboy trap he's always been. And here's why. The Japanese internet, and more importantly ArcSys in Japan, still refers to him as a boy. In Japanese, he's specifically referred to as an otokonoko. Yeah, y'all knew this word was coming. It means male daughter. Otokonoko is a type of gender nonconformity unique to Japan, but it's explicitly not trans. Otokonokos are still men, they're just feminine men. They've adopted a feminine role, but they don't consider themselves women. And while the English version of Bridget's final line is translated as a triumphant coming out moment, the Japanese one has added context.
元気でな、お嬢ちゃん。いや、お坊ちゃんか？
お嬢ちゃんでいいですよ。うちは女の子ですから。
Otokonoko will often refer to themselves as girls, specifically in this type of playful way, not because they actually consider themselves girls, but more as a playful aesthetic flourish. And there's probably a few weirdos out there who will say that this point is cope, she's obviously trans, but you know, this actually happens regularly outside of Japan. How often do gay effeminate men call themselves, or other gay effeminate men, girl? How often do drag queens refer to themselves as girls or ladies? Or queens, obviously. None of this is an expression of transness, of the desire to be a different physical sex, or of gender dysphoria. It's all playful expressions of gender nonconformity. People are even saying that because the symbol on Bridget's design was changed from a male one, that's gotta be proof that he's trans. But this isn't the trans symbol, it's the androgyny symbol, which otokonokos use in Japan. A lot of the woke scold replies to these points have an undercurrent of the idea that Japanese people don't know how to do transness correctly, and that being otokonoko is being trans, even if both the otokonokos themselves and the culture that spawned the idea disagrees. At that point, it feels like it's not about representation, but about cultural colonization. And that's because it is. Let me show you how. Lilith nailed it on the head back in 2018 when she tweeted this now deleted banger. In just half a decade, anime traps and dick girls have done more for the normalization and popularization of feminine boys and trans women within the Western zeitgeist than social justice has since its inception. She nuked the tweet because the trans activists and woke scolds were raging like mad at her, but this is a true statement. Bridget's old popularity and the current fan backlash can attest to that. While Bridget was portrayed as a trap back in the day, Testament from the same game series was basically non-binary or some flavor of genderless before that was even a thing. In earlier games, he was portrayed as an androgynous man. People used he and him to refer to him, and he was male, but he was more than happy looking and behaving like he was in between. But in modern games, he's been revisioned due to an in-story event which actually made him biologically sexless. And yeah, there was a little bit of fan backlash when this happened too. I think what's happening here is that people just like the idea of playing with gender outside of the bounds of transness. There's a lot of gender stuff out there that isn't strictly hyper-masculine or hyper-feminine, that at one point existed separate from transness. And the people who both liked those characters and viewed themselves in that way in real life also preferred existing outside of the trans sphere. But in recent years, there's been a concerted cultural push to make everything that isn't strictly man or woman trans, and that's not good. In other words, you can't have a feminine male character anymore without the trans lobby demanding they be trans. And yeah, they don't actually care about Bridget or Testament or Guilty Gear. My friend Dimitri Monroe, who's actually a femboy IRL, does a lot of good videos on this topic, way more in depth than me, but we can scratch the surface here for our purposes. The manga, I Think I Turned My Childhood Friend Into a Girl, took that girl character, who was an otokonoko in the original, and the plot, which was about two gay men falling in love, one of whom was a trap, and through translation shenanigans, in English rewrote the story to be about a trans woman. Or how Naoto in Persona 4 is a tomboy who wants to exude a tough presence because she's entering into a male-dominated profession, and she was rewritten by English translators to be a trans man. The most striking example is probably the most famous trap after Bridget, Astolfo from Fate. He explicitly says, "I am a man" multiple times despite looking and acting girly, and yet he's often considered a symbol of anti-transness online simply because he's not trans. The word trap is considered a slur against trans people, which is why the "Are Traps Gay" kerfuffle from years ago was a thing. And when femboy began to replace trap as a word used to describe feminine men, femboy began to be considered a slur in the same way. The ethic that these people are operating under is, if you're not a traditionally masculine man or feminine woman, if you're playing with gender in any way, you have to be trans, or else you're offensive to trans people. What's really behind it, though, is simply craving the cultural power that comes with representation. The reason Astolfo is the most striking example for our purposes is because Fate actually has trans characters already, who are pretty good representation for that demographic. But Astolfo is popular. He's the face of the series, and so they want him. It's not for representation's sake. If it were, they would know who they're already represented by. It's for cultural colonization. It's for the cultural power that comes with the representation being pushed front and center. And their pursuing this power makes for some, really weird scenarios. For example, in Cowboy Bebop, the character of Gren is a former super soldier who, as a side effect of the drugs he was given to become a super soldier, has grown breasts. But he's still a man, and his arc in the show deals with his PTSD, how his society basically sacrificed their veterans and threw them away. And when he's mistaken for a woman or insulted by being called one, there's a lot attached to that. But in the god-awful live-action Cowboy Bebop show, Gren is reimagined as a proud, flamboyant, non-binary character. If the message is that you can be abused and mistreated into gender nonconformity, that's not a very positive way of looking at this topic. In fact, that's the weirdest thing about this whole Bridget controversy. Terminally online Twitteroids who are demanding that Bridget is trans. You gotta know what this means, right? It means that Bridget is literally a grooming victim. You could post him on libs of TikTok and they'd actually be completely correct for once. His story is that he was forced to be a girl by his parents to prevent a religious superstition, and his entire arc is trying to get away from that life. Where exactly is the positivity about Bridget being trans? Are you really okay with your trans representation being a person who was socialized and tortured into being trans? Aren't you just giving ammo to the conversion therapy fucks who want to do the same to you to make you the other gender too? It seems like the online trans activists can't help but shoot themselves in the foot every time this happens. This Bridget stuff was funny, and yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. If Arxis comes out and directly says, yes, Bridget is trans, fine, it's just a game. These people still seem unhinged that this is the story they want. Oh well, at least it made going back and watching old Markiplier videos have a bit of an extra edge to them.
There we go. Bridget makes everyone... I don't know. How am I going to know? Who's Bridget? Who the hell is Bridget? Who's Bridget? Who the hell is Bridget?
Are traps gay?